Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants.
Let's go, Giants!
With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
Standing on time, gonna stop, we came to play. Ain't slowing down, we're here to stay. And we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a giant tonight.
It's Monday, September 30th, 2019, and this is episode 183 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Eric Nathanson, and joining me, as always, from the beautiful state of California is Chad King. Chad, how you feeling after that Bochy episode we just recorded?
Yeah, that was a tough one, man. If you haven't heard it, if you're hearing this first, go back to episode 182. Eric and I definitely go off about Bruce Bochy, play a lot of clips, and talk about the man that directed this team through 3 world championships over his 13 years. It was an emotional roller coaster, and I'll be honest, it's tough right now because, I'm just thinking about Bruce Bochy, but we want to talk about, how the Giants did over this last week of baseball and talk about the future of the Giants, but also the future of the playoffs and how we think that the playoff teams are going to do. But, yeah, thanks, Eric. We're going to roll into this one.
Yeah, generally we do a season wrap-up show where we will, at the end of the episode, we're going to go back, take a look at some of our predictions from beginning of this year and see, how they fared, and take a crack at picking the playoffs every year. Last year I know I was horrible at it. I believe Chad pretty much nailed it. I think you pretty much nailed it the last couple years. I remember a couple years ago, you and Willie took Houston and I took LA, and I haven't lived that one down. So we're going to jump into that stuff, but we're going to start off by reviewing the final week of Giants baseball from the 2019 season. And I'm going to jump right into it. We recorded last Tuesday, which happened to be the beginning of their last week of baseball. Or was that the week before? Forget it. Anyway, last Tuesday, Colorado came to town for 3 games, and the Giants started off their final homestand of the season by losing 8-5 to Colorado. And I'm going to be honest with you folks, we don't have many notes about this game. There's nothing to touch on. I don't even that was Bumgarner. Well, that was Bumgarner's final start at Oracle Park.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that they couldn't get a win for him. That's the one thing I was really looking for that day.
Yeah, it was interesting because they reset the rotation so that Bumgarner was going to get the last start of the year at home against LA today, or yesterday, I should say. That didn't happen. There was some change in the couple of days prior to the last game yesterday. So I don't think everyone was ready that might have been, could be, the last start of Madison Bumgarner in a Giants uniform. And we'll talk about his pinch hit appearance yesterday, but yeah, I didn't think that. I thought, oh, okay, pedestrian start. They lost. He lost. He's going to beat the Dodgers. It'll be great. That didn't happen. So
no,
it's a little bit of a gut punch in that sense. I mean, if he re-signs with the Giants, we're not going to even think about this. But if he doesn't, that's it. This is the last start. This is the last time he's going to throw a pitch for the Giants.
And it wasn't a bad start. He threw 7 innings, gave up 6 hits and 4 earned. Problem was he gave up 3 long balls, which accounted for 4 of the 5 runs that the Rockies scored.
Yeah.
And his ERA, which we were talking about, did finish the season at 3.90. So he did finish under 4 with his ERA. And if you remember, and I will fully admit this happened again, this was the 16-inning game where after the game, even Posey said to reporters, that's not how baseball's supposed to be played.
Yeah.
He felt like the rosters were too big, and I agreed with him. And again, just like the game in Boston, I watched every pitch of this freaking game, and it just it was a gut punch at the end when Blackmon hit the 3-run homer in the 16th inning. But, I mean, what are you going to do? These teams aren't playing for anything at this point, so it's not as much of a gut punch when it doesn't matter. So, you know, they lost that game 8-5, and then they had to bounce right back Wednesday, which is a game you attended.
Yeah, that was a fun game. You know, the Giants are going in really nothing to play for. It didn't matter if they won or lost, and we'll talk about the Dodgers series and how much that didn't really matter because it was a bad series. But the Giants were tied 1-1 going into the bottom of the ninth. Now, Jalen Davis hit 35 home runs as a minor leaguer this year, and everybody was thinking, okay, this is our next outfielder, our next Jeffrey Leonard. And he struggled, to be quite honest, and he was pushing and pressing, and I think a lot of people understood that. And earlier in the game, when he was over, I tweeted out from our TortureCast saying, I want to see Jalen Davis's first home run. And, of course, I was referring to earlier at-bats, but as it turned out, it went to the bottom of the ninth, tied 1-1, and Jalen Davis came to the plate with one out. And this is what happened.
3-2. Breaking ball, high drive, center field, it is out of here! How good does that feel for that kid? And this game is over. He did it 35 times in the minor leagues, and now he's done it once in the big leagues.
So, just an incredible, I'm sitting here in the press box, right? Having a great time. Don't get me wrong. It was a fun night, but the reality is a lot of the guys in the media were there the previous night, went 16 innings, and I myself tweeted on the TortureCast account, like, please, no extra innings tonight. Please, please. I got to go home. I got to do stuff. And a lot of the other guys were thinking the same thing. And Jalen Davis took care of business. And it ended up being the last, second to last win for the Giants of the year, but the last walk-off, of course, of the year. It was a lot of fun. Jalen Davis is a guy that I think we have to keep an eye on. We don't know where he's going to go. He obviously has done very well in the minor leagues, 35 home runs this year in the minor leagues. But we've seen this before with the Giants prospects, and that's the problem, is that there's very few guys that seem to step up in terms of average or power. And this is a guy that they traded for from Milwaukee, and you think, okay, he's going to be maybe a potential guy, and he still is, but he didn't do so well down the stretch. He had his one home run, but he hit basically just a little over 100. So he's got
it was
really
167.
167. Yeah. So he's got to fight for that position next year, and I totally think it's within his realm of possibility because a lot of guys who have done very well in their careers started at the end of September with a call-up and struggled. So I'm not going to count him out yet, but it was a lot of fun seeing him hit it to dead center, by the way, 420 feet. So it was great.
It didn't even look like he got all of it. It was a breaking ball. And when he hit it, it just didn't, feel like it. But it was a warm night at the park, and I guess the ball was flying a little more. And that home run by Jalen Davis made him the 24th different Giant to hit a home run this season. And that surprised me. I don't know if that's a record with the Giants, but that's a lot of different players to hit a home run. Granted, when you have 64 different people make an appearance in a game, that's going to happen, but all 64 were not batters. So, I found it interesting. He was the 24th and final player to hit a home run I don't know if it was the final home run of the year, but it was cool that he was able to get on the board because, like you said, when they got him from the Twins and the Dyson deal, they really were kind of high on him being
I think I said Brewers. I should have said Twins. Yeah.
No worries. I was steamrolling over it. That was part of why they got him was because of that power factor. And like you said, we've seen guys come up before and do those things, but he finally was able to step it up and do it. And I'm pretty sure that the guys dumped water and Gatorade on him just because they were happy to go home. And I mean, you had a long night at the ballpark that night. You were there early.
Yeah, I was there early. I was hoping to get an interview with Boch. His pregame press conference happened a little bit earlier than I expected. They did not have batting practice because of the 16-inning game the night prior, but I did get a batting practice ball, actually. I've gotten a few balls over the years, but typically it's because, in the past, like Tim Flannery or one of the other guys was hitting BP, or ground balls, I should say. And, once in a while, a ball will come in rogue. They're not perfect. They are human, and it'll come and skip by us, and we'll pick it up. And one of the security guys usually comes over and is like, "Give me the ball." And, it's not like freebies like during a game, but one of the Giants was warming up. I saw Johnny Cueto, by the way. He was great. He was warming up, and someone was behind him, perpendicular to the stands, and he skipped the ball up into the stands. And about 10 minutes later, I figured, I should go check it out. This is before the fans could come into the park, so the stadium is empty. I've never done this before, but I walked up into the stands and thinking like someone's going to yell at me, "What are you doing there? Get the F out of here," that kind of thing. I walked down where I assumed it would be, and it was a few rows lower than I thought, but there it was. Picked it up, went into the bowels of the stadium, and actually I was right behind Dwayne Kuiper, who I did know, but he was there. He dropped a whole bottle of juice. It was a glass bottle, shattered everywhere. All these Giants employees just kind of looked around and they kind of chuckled and laughed, and he's like, "Clean up on aisle 5," and no one did anything. So I kind of strolled up, and he was already on his knees cleaning up glass, and I helped him out. I picked up a bunch of glass, put it into the base of the glass bottle he was carrying, and he said, "Oh, yeah, put it in here. Helped him out. It was about a minute or two, and afterwards he said, "Hey, thank you so much." And I was like, yeah, no problem. By the way, nice to meet you, big fan, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, yeah, no problem. It was just very odd. It was like all these like Giants, employees didn't want to help out. But that was my cold call introduction to Dwayne Kuiper, whom we all love. But later in the game, I was attending a pregame party by sports hosts, and it was so much fun. I met Lefty O'Doul's cousin, Tom O'Doul.
Wow. That's cool.
I know, right? I mean, it's like 77 years old, total fun dude, man. He had so many stories. Hung out with him and his friend who was like 27, fan of the podcast, ended up giving him the ball that I collected earlier, and he said he was going to give it to his daughter, whom, look, I can't confirm or deny that he gave it to his daughter.
Right?
I'm going with that, right?
We'll just hope that he did, yeah.
I'm just hoping, because, like, I have some kids, too, but, whatever. I gave it to him. No, but Michael Barrett from Sports Hosts invited me out, and it was a lot of fun meeting a lot of people who, it's an organization where they basically say, "Hey, look, we're Giants fans. If you're gonna explore a new facility, a new park, come on out, check us out. We'll take you around." So it's like if you were to visit, Texas or something, and you didn't know anything about their park. Well, you could hook up with a person that knows a lot about the area, and you hang out with them. They show you the pregame haunts, the stadium itself, and then the postgame drinking festivities, right? So things could definitely happen. But there was a lot of international variety, a lot of Japanese people, a lot of Europeans. It was really cool because it's introducing this American sport to people who may not be totally familiar with the sport itself. So we took some pictures. It was a lot of fun. They auctioned off some baseballs. So, look forward to working with sportshosts.com. Check them out. And, if you're a local, basically, that's a great opportunity to be a host, because if you're a host, you can earn points to then get, tickets and food and drinks and everything like that into the future. So, I highly recommend it. But overall, it was a great night. Anytime you walk it off, it's going to be a good thing. And going into the Giants clubhouse, it was a lot of fun. I will say, covering the Giants is fun, but covering a Giants loss is not fun at the end, because no one wants to talk to you. And that's usually when I go, okay, I'm just not even going to go in there. A Giants win, however, they got the music pumping, the dry ice going. It's great. I can't imagine being a player in the past, if I was a professional, coming in and just hearing the music, hearing the beats, having all the players, mill around and the reporters come in. I'd be totally into that. I mean, it might last only like 2 years, but still, right. I think I'd dig it.
Yeah, it's funny. The vibe, it's got to be good. I mean, nobody wants to talk after a loss, because they don't want to just say, some guy could go 4 for 4 during a loss, but he has to act as somber as the guy next to him who went 0 for 4 because the team lost, even though he had a great day. And ball players are programmed now that when the team loses, okay, we got to be down. Because, no offense to these guys, they're professionals. So when they leave the park, they're not taking that loss with them, generally speaking. But they might take the win with them. They just know how to shut off that part of it because they're professionals. And so I totally understand not wanting to go into the losing clubhouse. But it's probably easier to even, the Bochy's post-game pressers have to be even easier, after a win. The only one I've been to, they won. So, absolutely. It was an experience. But you had a funny anecdote that you shared the other day from the end of Bochy's presser, which I thought was like so out of character for him.
Yeah, it was. So after the walk-off win, obviously he's in a good mood. The players are in a good mood, but he's got 4 games left. But that was my last game covering the Giants this year. And after the last question, so for those of you who don't know, there's a little bit of a unprofessional / professional pause that happens where there'll be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions from the media. And then there'll be this uncomfortable pause. And that's kind of the signal that we're done here. And the press will get up and leave. And usually Bochy will go, okay, thanks. And he'll get up and leave. And that'll be it. Lasts a total of 5 to 10 minutes. Give or take. So I think we were only about 5 or 6 questions in on Wednesday. And the media just gets up after the uncomfortable pause and starts leaving. Now I'm writing my notes down. I'm like, okay, I'm not a part of this. Well, Bochy just sat there. I don't know why. I can't assume that he was trying to take it all in. Whatever. He just sat there. And everybody starts leaving, and I'm writing my notes down. And by the time I notice that he's still there, everyone's gone. and I look up, and Matt Chisholm, who's the press guy who has been so instrumental in our access with the Giants, actually said out loud, "Well, what? Do you want more questions?" And Bochy's sitting there, and I'm not kidding you. He was like a little kid, and he goes, 407 years ago, our nation brought forth, and he starts going to Abraham Lincoln's speech, and I just started cracking up. It was fantastic, and so, I regret not going up and thanking him for that that moment, that opportunity, but at the same time, I'm just a little schmuck podcast, and I don't want to take his time and maybe get kicked out for fawning over him. But it was a little peek, a little glimpse into the world of Bruce Bochy, that he's there with me and Matt Chisholm and no one else, and that's what he says. That was just like, he wasn't performing. He was just going off the cuff. He was just being Bruce Bochy, and it was so fun to watch.
It's kind of neat that you get that lasting memory from that moment. As you're talking, I'm like, damn, I wish there had been video of this. And then I thought to myself, I'm kind of glad there isn't. Yeah. Because that was one of those moments. So, we talked about it on the previous show. If you didn't listen to episode 182, we just recorded our Bochy send-off. Thank you, Boch, there. And we talked a lot about different moments and things, but you got that one kind of personal moment. Granted, he wasn't at you, but it was, like you said, his guard was down. And, I'm inclined to believe that when you said he was kind of sitting there taking it all in, I bet he was. I wouldn't be shocked if the thought went through his mind as he was sitting there, this might be the last time I'm in here as a winning manager. Yeah. Because the Giants, let's be honest, after the next day, things didn't go well against LA. So he might have actually thought that. So it was cool, and it's cool to hear about the sports host. That seemed to be a fun thing. So you got lucky with your last game of the year. You really did. Overall, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think I went 4-1 this year in the games I attended. So
yeah, the only one you lost was when I pointed out that you were undefeated. Yeah. So we can bring that back on me, folks. But Chad didn't go to the park on Thursday, and they still managed to win without him, which was pretty impressive. That was 8-3 was the final score Thursday against Colorado, the third game of the series. So they took 2 of 3 from Colorado, and it looked like the Giants were going to be able to win enough games to not end up with the worst record in baseball. And they put together a really good performance that Thursday. Tyler Beatty put together 3 1/3 innings. He didn't give up a hit, and then he had to leave the game due to injury. He threw a pitch, and suddenly his side was hurting. But he got so much help from Mike Yastrzemski, who hit one of the farthest home runs I think we've seen at Oracle Park this season.
And he would hit line drives to a catcher. That ball is hit deep to the big part of the yard. Way back there, still going. Adios, Pelota! What a shot over the 421 side and the 20-foot high wall. That is the 21st home run of the year for Yastrzemski. And it puts the Giants back ahead 2-1.
So we talked about the...
the dude has been incredible this year. Yeah. Off the trash heap from the Orioles, and 267, 21 home runs in 2/3 of a season. He's been incredible.
Yeah, it was cool too, because that was directly the bottom half of the inning after Beatty came out. So Yastrzemski seems like that type of player that wants to pick up other players, and he seemed to be in a groove going the rest of the year, because this was a back and forth game. He homered to give them the lead, and then the Rockies, Jesus. Rockies,
that means
I don't know.
the Giants win.
Rockies came back and tied it right away. And then the Giants, they took a 3-2 lead. And then Mauricio Dubon had a sneak attack home run, his 4th home run of the year, right down the line in left field. Yeah. And it gave the Giants a 4-2 lead. And they were able to finish it off 8-3 by putting up 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th. The Dubon homer to me was impressive too because, I talked about it earlier this year with Pilar and right-handed hitters yanking home runs down that line. And Doobie, that's exactly what he's doing. And it was just absolutely perfect. So it was the last Giants victory of the season, and it was an overall team victory.
Yeah, Dubon, he's a light hitting guy. I mean, I weigh more than him, but the fact of the matter is he definitely pulls those balls down the line and gets them just outside of the foul pole. He had 4 home runs this year. How many home runs did Crawford have in 5 times the at-bats, right?
Yeah.
He's never going to be a power-hitting shortstop, but, at the same time, I think that's where the Giants need to start moving. It's weird. It feels like we're, dissing guys like Crawford and Belt and others, but at the same time, you saw how, Farhan jettisoned,
Joe Panic,
and that's where they're going.
Yeah, he looks like the real deal. I remember a few years ago, we were on the pod, you, me, and Willie, when Christian Arroyo came up, and I was all in. This guy's the real deal, yada yada yada. I loved everything about him. I remember the show. I don't know why, probably because I was so wrong, but I remember the show. And, because I'll freely admit when I'm wrong. I'm 40. What the hell do I care? And the Dubon, I think he's the real deal. A friend of mine said to me the other day, he reminds him of Javier Baez.
Yeah.
And I can see it because Dubon is so quick with his hands, and then you watch him make the turn at second base. This is a guy who's a natural shortstop, and he's making the turn from the second base position like it's nothing. I don't remember which game it was the other day, but they turned a double play where Dubon was playing short, and he slid through and he just kicked the bag and then threw the ball. And I was watching the game with my wife, and my wife's like, "Why didn't he touch second?" I was like, "He did. You'll see it when they show the replay. He just barely kicked the corner," and he did. Because he's got those instincts. He just has baseball instincts, and that's what you look for in the really, really good players. So, Doobie, I think he better be sticking around at the big league level. I can't see any reason why he won't be in the starting lineup when next year comes around.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So, the Giants went into the series with L.A. Look. We're going to gloss over this. The Giants scored 2 runs, and the Dodgers swept the Giants. But that transitioned into the Bochy ceremony, which was fantastic. But, I think there's certain points that we can, pick out. For example, yesterday, Bumgarner, his at-bat against Kershaw. Now, he was supposed to start that game, but the Giants and Bochy and whomever decided, no, he's not going to start it. They altered the rotation to do it. That's why it was a little bit weird, but, it felt like a little bit of a last-minute call. But anyway, Bumgarner put on his spikes. He was wearing it, and he went out for his pinch hit appearance. It was fantastic. Kershaw, to his credit, and the Dodgers, he just threw fastballs. In fact, some of them were inside and high and tight, and he didn't mean to do that. I think he was so jacked up, he couldn't place them very well. But with the full count, Bumgarner lined a ball to third base for the final out of the inning. It was fun to watch, and as Kershaw came off, he tipped his cap to Bochy. So, no matter how much we hate the Dodgers, we talked about this in the previous episode, 182, the Bochy love fest. Dave Roberts, of course, played for him, loves Bochy. And Kershaw is, I'm not going to say he loves Bochy, but he's a great guy. And it was fun to see.
Yeah, Kershaw and Bum have become friends, whether Giants fans want to like that or not. They talk a lot, and they get together before every series and, talk by the batting cages and stuff. So for Kershaw to be the pitcher, I also have to wonder if Boch talked to Roberts before the game, and Roberts said, I'm going to be bringing in Kershaw at some point, and Boch held on to Bumgarner for that moment. And the ovation he got was just fantastic and came from Giants fans' heart. But one thing that really stuck out to me was how long he kept tipping his cap, and it made me really feel like he was doing that because he knew it was his last time getting appreciated by this crowd. And I'm starting to think he's not going to be back. So, it's totally appropriate that Bumgarner's final appearance in a Giants uniform could be at the plate against Clayton Kershaw, because of all the pitchers that have come through, he is the one that we love to see come to the plate, compared to the other ones. And that was a great absolute moment in that one. And like you said, it's not much else in the series to talk about.
No, it sucks, but I agree with your interpretation that Bumgarner, who wants to be a Giant, would like to retire a Giant. And he's not into pomp and circumstance. The fact that he was so egregious with his, his emotions, I guess you could say, in terms of like tipping his cap to the crowd. No one expected that. Everybody expected him to come up and just be like, I'm Madison Bumgarner, I'm hitting the ball, right?
Right.
And he didn't. And, Kershaw was great, calling Will Smith up from the catcher's position to do his little conference. And, Bum really took it in. And that was a big sign to me. The fact that he knows that it's quite possible that he may not be a Giant. And I think where the Giants screwed up is not offering him. Well, I shouldn't say screw up. I mean, look, Madison Bumgarner had a 3.9 ERA this year. He might go into the future having a 4+ ERA. We don't know if he's going to be the Madison Bumgarner from years past. So maybe Farhan already has the idea that he's not going to be that guy. He's going to be like a Bill Walsh, and he's going to let guys go just after they peak, right? That was Bill Walsh's MO. So maybe that's not going to be a big deal. But at the same time, getting rid of him and or not signing him to a big contract, which another team was probably going to do, might be the reason that Farhan is here. And it's hard to think about, but at the same time, analytically, it's understandable.
Yeah, I also have a feeling that, and then we'll move on from Bum. I have a feeling that Bum also has, and this is just a gut feeling. I know Bum is a smart man, but you almost feel like he says to himself, I don't want to play for this little twerp. He's not a baseball guy. You know what I mean? And not to say that Farhan's a twerp. Farhan, if you're listening to this, first of all, thanks. But I'm not calling him, a little twerp, but it just, it reeks of that. And, for a weekend, the Giants didn't score a run in the final 24 innings of the season. They scored 2 single runs Friday night. And Friday night was also semi-special before the game because Kevin Pillar, who wasn't even on the Giants roster to start the season, won the Willie Mack Award. And that was I said it on the podcast like 3-4 weeks ago. I think it's going to be Pillar, and you brought up Vogt as who you thought it was going to be. I was sure it was going to be one of those two guys. I think Yaz had an outside shot at it after last week. But the Giants voted Pillar, and I really think that they made a good choice. He gave a nice little speech. He admitted later that he watched Bumgarner's speech from 2014 to give himself some tips on what to say, because apparently Pilar didn't realize how big of a deal this is.
Yeah.
And, like we talked about in the last show, old players coming back, that's another night where all the old players came back. And, Pilar got to say his, speech. He actually had a sheet to give himself, remind himself of the notes and stuff. And it was kind of bittersweet because it was the first Willie Mack ceremony ever without Willie McCovey. And, his wife was escorted out by Bochy. And they did it up really, really nice. And it was – Pilar is absolutely a worthy winner. I have no qualms with it. I have no problems with it at all.
Yeah. Not at all. I thought that Vogt was going to win it, but we talked about it last week, and I thought Pilar was number 2. And so, the fact that he didn't even spend the entire season with the Giants is quite astounding. But he's been, the stalwart for the Giants, and he's led the team in batting average and home runs and RBIs. I mean, he's just been an incredible player. And so they have him under control for next year, but they have to go through arbitration. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there because, his client and his staff is going to put forth the fact that he led the team in so many categories. So it's it could cost the Giants a lot of money, but at the same time, it's not going to be as much as a free agent who signs for way more than what they're worth. So I think the Giants definitely should consider re-signing him. And
I mean, he's arbitration eligible, like you say, but that doesn't mean that they can't come to terms on their own before entering arbitration. Exactly. I remember the Giants had gone through a stretch of like 20-something years without arbitration until recently. I think there was one that they had to get into. So, because I saw a lot of chatter on the social media about, we got to re-sign him for next year and da-da-da-da. He's under Giants control.
Yes, he is.
So everybody can stop freaking out about the fact that Pilar might not be with the team next year. And I appreciated him as a team, and he was one of 3 Giants this season that had 20 home runs. And it was the first time since 2006 that the Giants had 3 batters with 20 home runs. And just as an aside, the Dodgers had 3 guys with 35 or more home runs. And we're over here celebrating 3 guys hitting 21 home runs. It just shows we got a long way to go.
Long way to go.
Yeah.
In fact, I forgot who it was, but I think it was the Brewers or the Angels. I don't know. Set the major league record for a number of triples between 3 guys, and I tweeted out from the Torchcast account saying, "Isn't that supposed to be the job of Oracle Park, the Giants? Yeah. Triples Alley? Just saying." Anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I know, right? So, everyone who wants to keep Triples Alley, I love Triples Alley, I really do. But if the Giants can't lead the league in triples, then what's the point? It's like just fucking cut it off.
It's just cute, So that was, by wrapping up that series, they finished with a 35-46 home record. Oh, I should backtrack. The Giants finished 77-85 overall, 3rd place in the National League West, which is probably better than either of us expected. We probably figured they were a 4th or 5th place team, but nobody expected the Padres to suck that badly. They were 29 games behind the Dodgers, so basically an entire month, and 12 games behind the 2nd wild card. I see wrote here they were essentially the 10th of 15 NL teams, which, I got to say, going into the season, that's about what we expected.
It is. And it's, after their incredible July, where they got to within 2 games of the wild card, in fact, I think at one point they were actually ahead of Milwaukee, who is, in the 2nd wildcard position right now, going to Washington. But that's what happens with playoff teams, right? And the Giants, and I don't think anyone thought that they were a playoff team this year. So the fact that they were even in the wild card hunt a month ago is it speaks volumes to this team, and I know that this team is going to take a lot of that into next year. But the reality is, it doesn't mean anything in the long run. Right. We could all say, "Oh, they were better than we thought we were going to be by like 3 games," but it doesn't matter, guys. You have to perform.
But to be fair, this season was fun, and
it was.
It really was. I gotta say, when we were doing this show in 2017 and they were slogging through their misery, it was not fun. This year was fun. July was fun. Dick was fun. Yaz was fun. Pilar was fun. Like, they had players and personalities and everything like that. I had a blast this year. I think knowing that it was Bochy's last season probably helped fuel that, but I really did. I enjoyed watching this Giants team all season long, which is why I was still watching 16-inning games on a Tuesday night at 3 a.m. in southern Georgia.
Yeah, I think you brought up their viewership totals there. All right, so
probably.
Look, the season is over. Bruce Bochy had an amazing send-off. Again, watch listen to episode 182 for all of that coverage. Let's talk about playoffs this year. We had an episode, season preview, in which we talked about whom we thought would make the playoffs. It's fun. I mean, I admit, Eric, I kind of forgot whom I picked, back in April. And, I know you did the same thing, but I went back and I listened to that episode, and it was fun to, yell at myself, going, "You idiot!" But we were both right on several occasions, so let's kind of review that.
All right. Well, it's funny because you say "you idiot." As I was going through some of them, next to a couple I wrote "moron" at myself in my own notes. So I'll go with mine. All right. At the beginning of the year, I got 1, 2, 3. I got 5 of the 10 playoff teams. We both got about 5. Actually, you got 6 of the playoff teams. I had the Yankees in the East. Absolutely. I had the Indians in the Central, and that didn't work. I mean, you talk about listening back. We talked about it before the show. We were so high on the Indians, we just rolled right past them. We didn't even consider the Twins. We both took Houston to win the West, which was a no-brainer. And then for the wild card, I thought Boston would hang in there and face Tampa. So I'm happy I got Tampa right. Especially, I even got Tampa right as the road team in the wild card game. But Boston didn't hold up their end of the bargain. But I think that's more of the American League than it is Boston, because they still had a good year. If the Giants had won as many games as Boston, they would be in the wild card hunt in the National League. Yeah. And then I totally screwed the pooch in the National League. I picked 3 teams that not only didn't make the playoffs, they didn't come close to making the playoffs. I thought a revamped Phillies team was going to be the best team in the division. I even said it on that show. They've got the most talent now in this division. Well, I was wrong. I picked the Cubs, and you kind of tried to shoo me away from that, but my heart wouldn't let me do it. And the Cubs, as we all know, lost 9 in a row towards the end of the season to completely fall out of the playoff race, and Joe Maddon's no longer their manager, and lots of things. And then I took the Padres in the West. Again, their manager was fired, so apparently I'm a jinx. Because, they had young talent, but they couldn't put it together. And I thought the Padres would actually put it together and then take a dive the next year. I thought they would be all high and excited for this year and ride that wave, and it didn't happen. So I put the Braves in the wild card game instead of winning their division because I figured that the Phillies were better. And then I got the second wild card team right. I took Milwaukee in that one, and they'll be traveling to Washington tomorrow to take on the Nationals in the National League that's a lot of Nationals. National League wild card game. So, I went so-so. I guess 5 out of 10 is not bad, but I swung and, for a National League podcast, I sure as heck swung and missed on those.
Yeah, well, I called 6 out of 10. You called 5 out of 10. But you nailed 4 out of those 5 picks in terms of, the Yankees winning the East, Houston winning the West, Tampa Bay getting a wild card, the second wild card, by the way, you nailed, and Milwaukee getting the second wild card. So, you nailed those. And I know you called the Braves for the wild card They won the East, so that's why you got 5 out of 10. Now, myself, I called Boston for the East. Wrong. Indians for the Central. Wrong. You did too.
Yeah.
Houston for the West. We both got that. Yankees, I said wild card. First wild card. No, they won the East, but that's that half category, I guess you could say. Seattle. Oh, my God. So wrong about that.
Well, it was looking good the first 2 weeks of April, and then it wasn't.
Well, that's the thing. Is like we made these predictions before, the first month of the season. So when it was into 1 month of the season, I was feeling pretty good about Seattle, and then they just dive bombed. We both picked Philly for the East. We were riding the Bryce Harper train, and it just didn't happen. They didn't even make the wild card, so we were both wrong about that. Now, I did think that the Central, and I went back and I listened. Now, I officially picked the Brewers, but I said, if not, it would be St. Louis. Now, of course, we all know this race came down to the last game of the year. So if St. Louis had lost and Milwaukee had won, the Brewers would be the Central champions, and I would have been vindicated. But as it turned out, it came down to game 162, and so the Brewers did not win the Central. St. Louis did, but that's that orange category, right?
It's not your fault that St. Louis got to play the Cubs, and the Cubs had rolled over and died that last weekend.
Well,
I mean, who could have foresaw that?
Yeah, that's true. So the National League West, like you said, you chose the Padres, which, they finished in 4th place. I thought they were going to do well this year, too. I didn't pick them. I picked the Dodgers, which was correct, but I thought the Padres might have had a chance at a wild card. And then in a wild card, I picked the Braves and the Cardinals. Now, they're both in the playoffs, but as division winners. And you picked the Braves and the Brewers. So, yeah, you got those right. So, it was kind of a mixed bag, but I think we did pretty well, Eric. I mean, to be honest.
I do, too. The Braves and the Cardinals will be playing each other in the first round. So, I mean, you did kind of nail that part. I thought we did pretty good, too. And you even said it. I see it in the note here. You said it. We could see Oakland winning 97 games again. Guess how many games Oakland won?
You listened to that last night, and I was like, oh, hey, I'm Nostradamus. Yeah, Oakland won 97 games again this year, and so they'll be hosting Tampa Bay in the wild card. So I thought that the Dodgers, and this is a freaking flashback to 3 years ago, but I figured, okay, I thought the two best teams in the league were going to be the Dodgers and the Astros, and that's exactly how it ended up. The Dodgers and the Astros were the top 2 teams in each league. So I thought I could see the Dodgers losing to the Astros once again, like in 2017.
It makes sense. It's still possible too, because they are the two best teams. The Astros were 1 game better than the Dodgers this season. Yeah. It still blows me away. Oakland won 97 games. They finished 10 games out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. The American League this season was a joke. I mean, the way that these bottom-feeding teams were, the Orioles, the Tigers, who else? The Royals, Seattle. There was just such bad baseball teams in the American League this year that 97 wins for Oakland was enough to secure a wild card spot, but I wouldn't have won any of the 3 divisions because all 3 division winners in the American League won over 100 games, which is the first time that's ever happened in the history of baseball.
Yeah, I saw MLB tweet out, the first time in history that 4 teams won 100 games, and I responded. I was like, yeah, that's a sign of bad parity. There's no parity,
There isn't right now.
You have 4 teams or 3 teams losing 100 games as well. It's that's not a good thing.
No, and like you, I said the Astros will win it all, and I did. I'll admit it. I did. I said the Padres. I said, what the hell? I'll throw the Padres in there. Maybe they can go on a run and get there. and their manager is fired, and they're looking for a new guy. So I have a big egg on my face when it comes to that one. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
Yeah,
with that.
but we both called the Phillies. I called Seattle. I mean, Seattle was one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, it's like, okay, doesn't matter that they started out well.
Yeah, no, it didn't. They were 13-2 at one point. It was just absolutely ridiculous. All right, so do you want to dive into our playoff predictions here, and then we'll slide back to the Giants and see where we landed on those?
Let's do it.
All right, you've got the bracket here in front of us. I have mine. If you haven't gone to your MLB at Bat app, they're running a contest. If you pick a perfect bracket, it's $250,000. They're not paying me for this ad. I just want to win $250,000. So you can go and you can guess every bracket. So starting with the first wild card game tomorrow night between the Brewers and the Nats. I have the Nats. Who you got?
The Nats. Yeah, no doubt.
And then A's and Rays. Again, I've got the home team. I'm going with the A's.
I'm going with the A's. The A's have been sadly victimized by the wild card for many years. Against the Tigers, against the Royals in 2014. So against the Yankees last year, I think they're going to break through. So yeah, I take the A's.
I love that it's a home game for them because that is a good environment when that place is packed. Bay Area fans do show out for that. All right, so that sets up. We both took the Nats. We both took the A's. So that sets up. I'll jump to the top of it. In the National League, like I just mentioned, we have the Cardinals and Braves. I took the Braves. I don't want to, we're not going to pick number of games, but I took the Braves over the Cardinals. I think that they just seem to have more depth. And they're superstars. You got Freeman, you got Donaldson, you got Acuna, you got Albies, and then you got Soroka on the mound. You got others that I can't think of at the moment because it's a long season. And the Cardinals, they're a good team, but I feel like the Braves will be able to take care of business and move to the NLCS for the first time in a long time for them.
Yeah, I'm going with the Cards only because they've been hot, and they are the Dodger killers, and that's what I'm hoping for, to be honest.
That makes sense. So flip it over. That means you have the Dodgers beating the Nats, I assume.
Unfortunately, yes, I do. But, the fact of the matter is, the Dodgers haven't won a World Series, as we all know, since 1988. They've won 7 consecutive division titles, and they can't win the freaking World Series, so they can't go to Game 5 or Game 7 in the World Series every year, right? At some point they're going to win it, so I just rather soon just get them out. Get them out early. They don't seem to leave early, but I want them to leave early, so I think this is a year that the Cardinals are going to do it.
Okay, so you've got the Nats losing to the Dodgers, and then your NLCS is Cardinals-Dodgers. Yeah. I have the exact opposite. I think the Nats will surprise the Dodgers and take them out in the first round. This Nats team is sneaky good. Like, we all thought that they were going to be crap. We even said it on our preview show. Oh, they're going to be crap this year. Like, I literally said that phrase. But I'm going with the all NL East NLCS, and I think it'll be the Braves and the Nats, with the Braves coming out on top, representing the National League in the World Series. And you think you got St. Louis there?
Yeah, I have St. Louis and LA, but I'd be happy with your pick.
Yeah. Okay. So who do you have coming out of the NL then? St. Louis or LA?
I have to go with LA. I don't want to, but I was right last year.
Yeah.
And I didn't predict them winning the World Series. So that's the thing. It's like, I think LA is very, very good, but I've never picked them to win the World Series in the last 2 years. And I was right with them getting to the World Series and just not winning it. So, I kind of think the same thing. I think that they may or may not face St. Louis, but regardless, I think they're going to have the talent to get to the World Series. But both you and I picked Houston to win it all, and have the best record in baseball anyway. So
right?
right about that.
Which is right, and that's exactly where I'm going right now. Flipping over to the American League side of things. So you've got LA, I've got Atlanta in the World Series on the National League side. On the American League side, the Twins and the Yankees play first, and I'm going with an upset here. I'm taking the Twins.
Yes.
From everything I've watched, they can hang with the Yankees.
Yeah, no, my heart says no to the Yankees because they have 27 World Championships, and we all know how much we hate them. The Twins only have a couple, but hey, look, I'm going for the Twins, but I think the Yankees are going to take it.
Fair enough. I'm rooting for the Twins all the way, and that might be a little biased. 2 reasons. 1, Sergio Romo. I'd love to see him get another ring. And 2, Rocco Baldelli, who's the manager of the Twins, who's actually younger than us. He's younger than me.
Oh.
Rocco is in his late 30s. Everybody probably remembers Rocco from his playing days. But Rocco and I have something in common. We are both big fans of the band Phish. So Rocco is one of us. And if you've seen my Twitter feed at all, you know I'm a big Phish fan. So I got to pull for Rocco as long as I can. And I might be a little biased, and that might be why I took the Twins over the Yankees. But from watching, I watched one of their series this year between the two teams. They had a game that was like 12-11, and it was, every time one team took the lead, the other team hit homers to take the lead. And these are the two hardest hitting or most home run hitting teams in the American League. So that Twins Yankees series, I mean, there might not be a game under 10 combined runs. Every game might be 10 or more combined runs. So all right, so you got the Yanks, I have the Twins. This is funny. We are really opposite on a lot of these. We both picked the wild cards the same, and then we've gone differently. Except then we get to the A's in Houston, and I think Houston's going to take care of business. They've seen the A's enough, and they know how to do that. And
I agree.
And then I have Houston beating the Twins, and then I have Houston beating the Braves. How about you?
Yeah, so I have, Houston winning, of course, against the A's. I do have the Yankees beating them, so it's going to be Houston and Yankees. So I have Houston getting to the World Series. On the National League side, I have St. Louis facing the Dodgers. And look, I know that I want St. Louis to win, but I think the Dodgers could beat the Cardinals and break that curse. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a rematch of the 2017 World Series, just like I said in the season preview. It's going to be Astros and Dodgers, with the Astros taking it all.
All right. Well, we're still in agreement, though. We both think that the Astros are going to take it all. And frankly, I'm fine with that. I'm not tired of the Astros. They're a fun team to watch. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this year's playoffs. The only rooting interest I truly have, I know I just talked up the Twins and all that, but the only real rooting interest I have is seeing the Dodgers lose. Beyond that, I just want to see good baseball.
Yeah. We're baseball fans, and the one thing I can say about watching the playoffs when the Giants are not in it, no matter how depressing that is, at the same time, any blown saves or crazy comebacks or horrible losses don't affect us, of course, in the same way as if a Giant were to blow a game in the middle of the season. In fact, just
Right.
out of 162, it's like, oh, that was fun. That's interesting. So I have to always take myself out of that realm and realize that's what most of the world thinks of a Giants playoff loss, right? It's like, they lost. Okay. We're crying, but other people are like, oh, that was a fun game.
Yeah, exactly. They're moving on. They're like, oh, it's fun baseball. What's next? And we're like, I can't watch more baseball right now.
So I just want to wrap up the show with some of the predictions that we made back in April. Aside from our win-loss total, as far as listeners, you guys submitted over 20 guesses, and you averaged 80.25 wins. And that's actually not too bad, considering the fact that the Giants won 77. Now, look, if they had swept the Dodgers, they would have had 80 wins. I fully expected them to win at least one and have 78 or maybe even 79 wins. So the fans you guys didn't do a bad job. Us individually, I think I took 73 as the over-under, which...
Yep.
The reason I took that, and I listened to it last night, because I was like, why did I think 73 again? I heard myself from back in April. I thought that, Bruce Bochy needed 74 wins to get to 2,000. So I thought that fate was going to be cruel and not allow him to get to 2,000 by one win. So that would be 73 wins. Now, 77 isn't much more. And, the Giants couldn't win even one game against the Dodgers. But very, very, very happy that the Giants and Bruce Bochy got to 2,003 wins. But, what did you think about, reflecting back on these predictions that we made?
Well, it's funny. With your 73 thinking fate would be cruel, you made the classic Giants fan... it shouldn't be classic. You made the new era Giants fan mistake, whereas you were certain that the Fates would hate us like they used to, and I was on the other side of things. You totally get where I'm going with that, because we used to, we're Giants fans. We're used to pain and failure and not being competitive from 1972 to 1987. But God, that's a long time. Yeah, but I went 75. I figured Bochy towards the end of the season, like he would be coming towards 2,000, and that the players would get themselves up to get there. And that's pretty much what happened. Because that Boston series last week, you could tell the Giants wanted to win it for Bochy and get it done, because they only won 3 more games after he won his 2,000th. They took one in Atlanta, and then they beat the Rockies twice to end up at that 77. So it was, I was a little closer, but it wasn't really. It's negligible at this point. Nobody nailed it. Chad's streak of nailing it has ended.
It has ended. But out of our 20 listeners, we did have one listener who actually nailed it at 77. Wait, where do I have that?
Yeah, 77. Dave Saunders is. Dave Saunders is a listener, so shout out to you, Dave. Nice job on nailing it with 77 wins. You had a pretty good idea of what this team was going to be. So did we, although ironically we didn't, because half the roster turned over. But Bochy did what he could with this team. So shout out to you, Dave Saunders. I don't know if it's Saunders or Sounders, because it's an AU. And growing up in the Midwest, they were interchangeable. I don't know how it is other places. So, that was a nice job nailing that one. And then we went into some other questions. We debated whether or not Bumgarner would be traded by the deadline. I didn't think he would, but I wouldn't be shocked if he did. You, on the other hand, thought it was possible.
I did. I thought Farhan came in, he was a man possessed. He had been making so many trades. Of course, we made these predictions like 3 days into the season, but, I thought that he would. Now, that said, his, performance yesterday, he didn't start, but he was, he pinch hit, faced Clayton Kershaw, and I think what was the take home for me was the fact that Madison Bumgarner is not into his appearance or look at me or social media. He is into showing guys up and challenging them, a la, Yasiel Puig, but I did not think he was going to tip his cap. But Clayton Kershaw called Will Smith up. It was a great move by him. And Bumgarner, took the opportunity. He tipped his cap, turned around, bowed, the whole thing. And I don't want to be too presumptuous, but at the same time, if he's a guy who thinks he's going to be with the Giants next year, especially given his personality, he doesn't do what he did. And I'm a little worried about that. And it just seems to me that it's possible that he really did think that this was his last time in a Giants uniform. And, if he signs with someone else, that's it. So he just wanted to take care of that. Now, if he knew he was going to sign with the Giants, I just don't think he would have done what he did, because that's so anti-Bum. Bum is not into himself, but he really did take the time to step back and wave to lots of people for a good minute. So,
and I'm grateful for that.
But I'm a little upset about it.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful that we had that opportunity and that he wasn't traded midseason. It would be tough to part with a franchise icon like that, And it's funny because it wasn't Bumgarner that I thought was going to get traded during the season. I thought it was Brandon Belt.
Yeah.
And I put it out there. I asked the question. We just talked about it. 3 Giants players hit 20 home runs, and the reason it was brought up was because Gorkys Hernandez tied for the team lead last year with 15.
Isn't that crazy?
It still blows my mind. And he was hitting under 100 for the Red Sox this year. And, I said yes, that one of the Giants would actually get over there. And obviously I didn't predict it would be Pilar or Yastrzemski because neither of them were with the team. But I did nail the third guy who hit 20 home runs. I didn't nail his number, but I said Longoria would do it. And on the flip side, the guy who I thought was going to be traded, Brandon Belt, was who you thought that it was, but you even say here you were going out on a limb, and you were, because he finished I think with 17 on the season.
17, yep.
Yeah, and that was nowhere near. Again, his production fell far below what was expected of him.
Yeah, I love the guy. I don't want them to get rid of him per se, unless they have a completely better alternative, but. I'm kind of done with predicting he's going to break through. When you see a Bruce Bochy tribute video and you see him welcoming Brandon Belt to the major leagues from 8 years ago, it's done, right?
Yeah, this is not a guy he's turning, it's his third year. This is when he's going to make the leap.
Yeah.
No,
that's literally the video that finally shook me. I knew it was there in the back of my mind, but I just didn't think about it. But when I saw that very young, svelte, not as much facial hair Brandon Belt, saying, "Welcome to the big leagues" from Bruce Bochy. And I remember being there, or not physically, but seeing that and going, "Oh, that's so great. He's going to be our next great first baseman." And I realized it's freaking 7 or 8 years later. He's not going to be that guy. He's not. No. He's not Will Clark. He's not even JT. Well, maybe JT Snow-ish. But point being, he's not the guy who we thought he could be. And it's fine. He's, you can't pressure yourself into being an all-star every year, but that's just not who he is.
No, not at all. And, we'll see what happens. He's got a couple years left on his contract, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what Farhan decides. I can't imagine that Farhan thinks that, he is the best of the best. I wouldn't be surprised if Belt gets shopped in the offseason, but he didn't get traded during the season like I thought, right. So... and I brought it up multiple times, and I've brought it up out of the blue, but it might be time. So then we tried to hit on all-stars, see if anybody would be an all-star this year. And Will Smith was an all-star for the Giants this year, and gave up a home run to Joey Gallo. And
burned for a little bit.
Yeah, it did. It totally did. I thought that Bumgarner would make the all-star team, and maybe Pomerantz and Posey, and I took a big swing on Pomerantz and missed. But the bigger swing I took was on Steven Duggar, and that was far from happening. I thought Duggar was going to turn that corner this year and possibly become an everyday center fielder and an all-star, and I wasn't even close.
If anyone can nail all these predictions, they would literally be earning millions of dollars and running their team or a team. So, we're just trying. But yeah, you beat me in total wins. Will Bumgarner be traded by the deadline? You said no. You were correct. I said yes. I was incorrect. Will any Giant hit 20 home runs? You said yes. Long ago. You thought he could hit 25. I said no, but 3 Giants hit 25 or 20 plus. So you nailed me on that. Who will be an all-star? Yeah, Duggar. Okay, granted, but Bum, that's a normal pick, and Pomeranz and Posey, who's normal. I said Bum and Posey. So we're both completely wrong about that. Who will lead the Giants in wins and ERA? You said Bum and Bum. I said Bum, though I thought he'd lead with 9 wins. So even though I was wrong, I nailed his win total completely right. I said 9 wins, and that's what he had. Now, Jeff Samardzija did lead the team in wins with 11. So basically, at the time, I thought, okay, no Giant's going to have over 9 wins. That's just the way the game's going, and I was right about that. But Samardzija did win the ERA and win total there. And then we asked ourselves, how many blown saves are they going to have this year? And if you remember, last year the big topic was blown saves. The Giants won, 75 games, but they just couldn't, put it together, and they blew a lot of games. We figured if they won enough of those blown saves, they might have been close to the playoffs. This year, however, even though I thought they were going to lead the league in blown saves, they did not. They actually had a very good bullpen, so that didn't happen. You were right about that.
Yeah, they came in 20th. They had 22 blown saves on the season, and the MLB average was 23. So they were above or below average, however you want to look at it. But the 2 teams at the top, Boston and Oakland, blew 31 saves this year, and they both had winning records. Yeah. So it shows how it's not necessarily indicative of the final outcome.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, so overall, I called 6 out of 10 teams in the playoffs. You called 5 out of 10, but you nailed 4 exact spots with the Yankees, the Astros, Tampa Bay, and Milwaukee in the wild card. I only got 2 correct, and that was Houston and LA. But so hey, combined, we're pretty good.
Yeah, we didn't do too bad at all, no. And it's nice to revisit this stuff, and that's kind of our bow on the 2019 Giants. I mean, there's not much more that can be said. We said a lot in our last episode. This is 183, as we said. Go back and listen to episode 182, and that is our Thank You Boch episode, where we do talk about the ceremony and Bochy and stuff like that, And then we're going to be back next week. We'll probably check in, see about the playoffs a little bit, and then take some time off, and maybe come back around World Series time to get it going again. As Chad said, Chad picks the Astros over the Dodgers in the World Series. I have the Astros over the Braves in the World Series. You got anything else that I'm missing here?
No, I don't think so. We'll be back next week to kind of dip in the middle of the league division series, and then the following week I'm going to be out on a research cruise, so I think after next week we're going to be previewing the World Series at that point. But what an emotional weekend, everybody. Again, like Eric said, check out episode 182 where we review the emotional send-off for Bruce Bochy. We had a lot of anecdotes and fun stuff to talk about, and some clips and all that. I hope you enjoyed episode 183 as we wrap up the Giants' final portion of the 2019 season. 2020 is going to be I don't even know what to say, Eric. I mean,
yeah.
This podcast has only existed under Bruce Bochy. And this podcast is almost 9 years old. So it's going to be new. It's going to be different. It's going to be uncharted territory. And I think that there's going to be a lot of, fans that hate who they pick. And there's going to be a lot of fans who love whom they pick. And it's going to be us to, up to us to, determine the pulse of the social context. Where are fans leading? And I'm a little concerned about it, but at the same time, the Giants have only had 4 managers in the last 35 years. So we have a tendency to stick with guys for a long time. So I think the Giants are going to make the right move. Farhan has a track record, and I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, we'll probably go over some candidates next week. We just wanted to kind of let this season marinate and the Bochy stuff marinate for a little bit. So we'll probably throw out some names next week, and by then we'll have heard some rumblings of who the Giants might be looking at and things like that. There are, I believe, 7 job openings in baseball right now. Yeah. So there definitely is going to be some competition. So we'll see where they go from there. And so we'll come back. We'll have episode 184 next week, and we'll talk Giants, and we'll catch up on the playoffs and what's going on. You can always follow us in all of our normal places, wherever you get your podcasts, Podbean, Apple, iTunes, all that stuff. You can follow us on Facebook at TortureCast. You can follow us on YouTube, where all of our episodes get posted as well, youtube.com/TortureCast. You can follow us both on Twitter. I'm 2OutHits. That's with the number 2. Chad is ChadK21. And you can follow us collectively at TortureCast. And I don't think I missed anything else unless you've got anything left for this show.
That's it, dude.
All right. Well, until episode 184, a boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.